Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Everyone, welcome back. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And yang toxic ya. Welcome to the channel. So I'm just sitting in here in my room today. No fancy studio setup, no crazy cinematic mirrors. Just me, the camera, and some really heavy talk I needed to get out of my head. Take a coffee or whatever you're drinking because we need to have a serious talk about the tech industry. I think a lot of us have fallen into a trap. We watch this aesthetic day in the life of a software engineer vlogs on YouTube. You know, the ones, the free letters, the colorful beanbags, the typing away on a custom mechanical keyboard. We're staring at a perfectly color-coded dark mode IDE. It looks like a dream, but recently I asked myself how much of that is actually real. To find out, I did something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I stepped away from my desk, closed my tutorial, and actually went out to visit a real fully operational software house. I sat down with the founders, the senior developers, and the project managers. And let me tell you, what I saw completely shattered my illusions. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly what happens on the factory floor of a real software agency. The first thing that absolutely blew my mind was how they actually build the software. When we are learning to code right here in our bedrooms, it is a solo journey. You come up with an idea, you write the code, you test it, you fix it. It's peaceful. But enterprise software development, it is absolute chaos managed by frameworks. I brought up the concept of SDLC, the software development life cycle. If you've taken an IT class, you've definitely heard of the waterfall method. It it is beautiful, logical, step-by-step process. And first you gather requirements, then you design, then you code, and you test. It's a straight line, but when I mentioned waterfall to the agency manager, he literally laughed out loud. Why did he laugh? Because the waterfall method assumes one impossible thing that human beings know exactly what they want from the very beginning. And here is the brutal truth about clients. They never know what they want, and they might come to you on Monday asking for a simple inventory system, and by Friday they suddenly wanted to have an AI chatbot and a built-in social media feed. This is why the entire industry survives on Agile and Scrum methodologies. They don't try to build the perfect app in one go. Instead, they work in short bursts called sprints, usually lasting 2 weeks. They build a rogue version, a minimum viable product, MVP, and they show it to the client immediately. The client says, I hate this color and move this button. And the team goes back and fix it. It's a continuous cycle of feedback and iteration. If your ego gets hurt because someone criticized your code, you won't last a week in a software house. Now, let's talk about the money. How does a software house actually get clients? I went in there thinking it was all about aggressive digital marketing. I thought they were running the thousands of dollars in Facebook ads and sharing of intent, not just on Facebook, LinkedIn too, like Instagram, like YouTube, and they using TikTok ads too and Meta ads. Uh, and futuristic tech stacks. I was completely wrong. The truth is incredibly old school. Yes, this that is very old school. And the founder told me, not the founder, he is a supervisor. He is named Masraken. They told me that their very first major project came from a friend of a friend. It was pure networking. It all grew through word of mouth. And that brings up a really important point about trust. A business owner looking to automate their company doesn't care if you write your backend in Node.js, Python, or PHP. They don't care about your plain architecture. They only care about one thing. Can you solve my business headache? That's it. I asked them if certificates matter, like should a beginner spend hundreds of dollars getting certified by AWS or Google? And Master can say, look at me dead in the eye and say, portfolios and health certificates. When a client or recruiter looks at you, a certificate gets you a polite note, but a live functioning application that actually solves a real world problem that gets you the contract. Personal branding isn't about flexing how many programming language you know. It's about proving you are a reliable problem solver. And sitting down with the senior developers was probably the most therapeutic part of my visit. You know what the most common feeling is, even among developers with 5 or 10 years of experience? Imposter syndrome, the feeling that they are just faking it and that one day everyone will figure out they don't know what they're doing. The tech landscape moves with terrifying speed. New frameworks drop every month, but the senior taught me something comforting. The hardest part of the job isn't memorizing syntax or writing complex algorithms. The hardest part is human communication. It's translating a client value, emotional requests into hard logical code. And of course, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Artificial intelligence is AI going to wipe out software engineers. Will tools like ChatGPT or GitHub Copilot make us obsolete? The consensus at the software house was a massive confident no. AI is not a replacement, it is a multiplier. Every single developer in that office uses AI heavily. They use it to generate boring boilerplate code, to spot silly syntax errors, and to write documentation. But AI lacks architectural foresight. It cannot design a highly scalable system that compiles with local tasks, allows while negotiating budget contracts with a stubborn CEO. If you are a code monkey who only types what you are taught to type, yes, AI is a treat. But if you are an engineer who use code as a tool to solve human problems, AI is your ultimate weapon. So, wrapping this all up, sitting here, reflecting on everything I learned, visiting that software house, fundamentally shifted how I view this entire industry. When we are studying, we spend 100% of our energy obsessing over the tools. We argue on Reddit about whether React is better than Vue or if Python is dying, but the real world doesn't care about our technical inputs. In the real world, code is just a byproduct. The actual job of a programmer is translating human chaos into digital order. It's about empty business strategy and resilience. Alright, let's pivot a bit because there's another massive reality check I experienced during my visit. When we are learning to code, we always start with a blank canvas. We type npx create react app or composer create project Laravel slash Laravel. And boom, we have a fresh, perfectly client environment. We call this greenfield development, and it feels amazing. You are the architect, and everything is perfectly organized according to your own logic. But I asked the lead backend developer, how often do you actually get to start a project from absolute zero? And he took a deep breath, looked at the ceiling, and said, almost never. The reality of working in a software house or any enterprise company is that 70 to 80% of your time is spent reading and maintaining legacy code. And let me tell you, legacy code is thriving. Imagine opening a project that was built 5 years ago. Three different developers have worked on it before you, and all of them have already quit the company. There is zero documentation. The variable names makes absolutely no sense. Like someone literally named a variable data final fix two. The logic is heavily tangled. What we call spaghetti code. You are tasked with fixing a bug in the payment gateway, but the moment you change one line of code, entirely unrelated feature break. You fix the payment and suddenly the user login stops working. Why? Nobody knows. That is daily life of a real software engineer. This is why reading code is actually a more critical skill than writing code. It requires an immense amount of patience and investigative skills. You basically become a digital detective. If you only know how to write code from scratch, but you panic when you have to dive into a massive, undocumented code base written by someone else, you are going to have a really hard time surviving in this industry. And now I often think about how long a project takes me. A simple to-do app, maybe a weekend, a portfolio site, a few days. So I asked the project manager and the agency about how they estimate timelines and budgets for massive enterprise projects. Because Let's be real. Time is money. If you estimate a project will takes 2 months and it takes four, the software house is bleeding money to pay the developers salaries for this extra 2 months. He introduced me to very painful concepts. The first in the 1990 rule of programming, it's an old joke, but it's dangerously accurate. It goes like this. The first 90% of the code account for the first 90% of the development time. The remaining 10% of the code accounts for the other 90% of the development time. Yes, that equals 180%. What it means is that polishing the app, handling the case bugs, and making sure the UI doesn't break on a white Samsung tablet from 20,000 takes a ridiculously disproportionate amount of time. The second concept is scope creep. This is the silent killer of software engine agencies. Scope creep happens when a client constantly asks for just one more tiny feature. Hey, can we just add a PDF export button here? Can the system automatically send a WhatsApp message to manager? To the client, it sounds like a 5 minute job. But to the developer, adding that WhatsApp feature means changing the database schema, setting up background job quests like Redis so the server doesn't freeze, handling third-party API keys, and writing new security tests. Suddenly, that tiny feature adds 2 weeks of unpaid labor to the schedule. Learning how to say no to a client or learning how to properly charge them for change is literally what keeps a software house from going bankrupt. I realized something else. Pop culture and movies like The Social Network or Mr. Robot have completely brainwashed us. We have this romanticized image of the solo genius programmer, the hacker in the dark hoodie who personally types on a keyboard for 3 days straight, drinks 10 cans of Red Bull, and single-handedly builds a $1 billion platform. The reality in a software house that solo genius is usually a liability. Software engineering at an enterprise level is an extreme team sport. You are never coding alone. You are using version control system, especially Git, and let me tell you about the absolute nightmare that is a merge conflict. Imagine you are another developer are working on the same file. You change line 45 and they change line 45 when you both try to push your code to the main repository. The system panics, it stops and basically says, I don't know whose code is right. Figure it out yourself. I was told stories of developer literally arguing in the office for an hour over whose code should override the other. And this brings us to the concept of code review and pull request. Before your code ever reaches the live server, a senior developer has to read it and approve it. This is where a ghost go to die. You might spend 3 days writing what you think is a masterpiece of logic only for a senior dev to leave 15 comments on your pull request pointing out that your code is inefficient, insecure, and doesn't follow the company's naming convention. If you can take harsh, blunt criticism about your work, you will be miserable in a development team. The code is not you. You have to detect your self-worth from the lines of code you write. Another thing that kept me awake after visiting the agency was the sheer scale of responsibility these guys carry when we are practicing in our rooms. If our code has a bug, the app crashes, we get an error on our screen, we refresh the page and we try again. No big deal, but when you are building software for a hospital, a logistic company, or a fintech startup, the stakes are terrifyingly high. Lead security engineer told me a story about the nightmare of .env files, and .env file is where you store your super secret API keys and database password. If a junior developer accidentally uploads that file to a public GitHub repository, automated but bots created by hackers will scrap the key within seconds. Within minutes, hacker can use your OS key to spin up hundreds of servers to mine cryptocurrency, leaving your client with a $50,000 server bill overnight. And this actually happened. And what about data breaches? Imagine writing an SQL query that isn't properly sanitized, malicious user inputs some code into your search bar, a technique called SQL injection, and suddenly they download the entire database of 10,000 customer emails and passwords. In a software house, you aren't just writing feature, you are constantly defending a fortress. The paranoia is real. You hold the private data of real people in your hands, and one lazy line of code can lead to a massive lawsuit that could shut the entire agency down. And what happened after the app is launched? In my head, I always thought launching an app was like finishing a painting. You paint it, you sign it, you frame it, and you're done. The agency founder looked at this analogy. He told me software is not a painting, software is a living, breathing houseplant. If you don't water it, is die. This is where the real business model of a software house shines. Building the application is only 20% of the life cycle. The remaining 80% is maintenance. Once real users start interacting with the system, they will do incredibly stupid things that your QA tester never anticipated. User will try to upload a 5 GB 4K video into a profile picture slot. Users will double click the pay now button really fast and accidentally charge their credit card twice. The bugs will flood in. Because of this, software house secure what are called retainer contracts. The client pays a fixed monthly fee, sometimes thousands of dollars, just to keep the developer on standby to fix this bug, update server package, and patch security vulnerabilities as a new threat emerge. So when you become a developer, you aren't just building new shiny things, you are essentially a digital janitor, constantly sweeping up the mess. Updating dependencies so the app doesn't break when Apple or Google updates the operating system, the work is literally never done. Before I wrap this up and give you my final thoughts, I have to be completely honest with you guys about something really embarrassing. I've been sitting here for the past hour dropping all this heavy knowledge about professionalism, agile workflows, and tech industry, but the truth is during this visit I messed up my theme and I actually arrived late for the scheduled appointment. It was a terrible first impression in the software business. Time is literally the most expensive currency. When you work into a company that operates on strict deadlines and bills clients by the hour, by the hour, uh, making their founders and senior developers. The founder is Mas Gilang and senior developers is Mas Rekan. Sit around waiting for you is incredibly disrespectful. It was a massive reality check. If I were a client pitching a project or a candidate showing up for an interview, that tardiness alone could have cost me the deal or the job before I even opened my mouth. And honestly, it didn't stop there. Once we were finally inside, the awkward hit us hard. We were so intimidated by the environment, seeing all these professional log in on their dual monitors that we lack initiative. We were way too passive as quests instead of breaking the ice, introducing ourselves properly, or proactively asking the question we prepared. We just stood there like deer in the headlights, waiting to be quiet. In the tech industry, passivity is death sentence. Whether you are a junior developer who is stuck on a bug and needs to ask a senior for help, or a software house trying to understand a client's visual business model, you have to drive the conversation. You have to take up space and show initiative. So, uh, learn from my massive failure. You can learn all the React hooks in the world. You can master Docker and you can write the cleanse API endpoints, but all of the technical brilliance is completely useless if you don't respect basic professional etiquette. Show up and on time, have the courage to start the conversation, and be an active participant in the room. Soft skills aren't just a bonus, they are the foundation that your technical skill is on. So maybe that is my journey for visiting software house. And the software house is name is Amanah Corp, the PT in the default. And that's all for this video. Thank you so much and see you in the next journey. Assalamualaikum.